transferring, theoretical knowledge to like a practical skills, and that's the first thing. Because in school, it was pretty purely like a theoretical, maybe some hands-on experiences, but working for an industrial, like enterprise level company, they scale up all the problems. So yeah. I'm not dealing with like my side projects, not dealing with like a one person or like a team based, but like supporting, like developing a project, supporting thousands of people or 10,000 people. And speaking of the clients, there will be million clients out there. So I need to figure out a way how to kind of transfer my theoretical knowledge into practical skills and how to apply them.
Wow, standing room only. Welcome, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and we're so happy to have you on our campus tonight. I'm Caroline Simard. I'm the dean of this campus, and it's really a pleasure to have you here. And tonight, we're going to talk about co-op and demystifying what experiential learning means at Northeastern Silicon Valley. So Northeastern is known for its unique approach to experiential education. So this is a university that I've been thinking about as the anti-ivory tower. Everything we do has to have impact. So you'll find this kind of always thinking about how does this apply? What does it mean what we're learning in the classroom in the so-called real world? You'll find our staff thinking that way, our students think that way, our faculty think that way. Even when you do cutting edge research, people will say, what about the impact, right? So this is really embedded in the fabric of the university. And it's not surprising because Northeastern has 115 years of experience collaborating with industry on experiential learning models. And so this year we're celebrating 115 years of co-op, and co-op is the model by which students go and get embedded in industry, government, nonprofit, the community organizations, whichever, to apply what they're learning in the classroom in the real world, which then creates a radically different kind of graduate, right? You've already applied the classroom learnings in the context by which you want to enter after you graduate. So this kind of ethos of impact is a perfect fit for Silicon Valley. This is a place that really thrives on what's the new idea, how do we apply it, what's coming out of universities, what new startup may you think of on the back of a napkin, even at the local cafe. So it's a perfect fit for our campus. So we're going to hear from students about their co-op experience directly and how they have looked for co-op, what they gained from co-op, what are the big ahas they got, and how did they take that back in their studies and future career plans. We know that the co-op model that Northeastern has pioneered is a very applicable both for undergraduates who may think, oh, I thought I wanted to work in this industry. It turned out that's not the career I want, right? Sometimes that's the point of a co-op. You realize maybe this is not the context you wanted. Our grad students then have more experience. Many have already have work experience. Many of you in the audience also have work experience. And so the co-op may have a different kind of impact on learning. So we're going to hear about all of your co-op journeys. We're going to each start with a question about your name, introduce yourself, your program, where are you from originally, what did you study in undergrad, and what field you were working in before grad school, and why Northeastern in Silicon Valley. So Jason, I'll start with you.
All right, so my name is Jason Zhang, and originally from China. And I studied my undergrad in petroleum engineering. Ooh. And I also did my first master in geophysics and earth science. And I'm currently in the computer science aligned program. And the reason I choose Northeastern not only is the prestigious name of the Northeastern, but it's sitting the Silicon Valley campus is sitting in the center of the technology, and why not just apply for it and start my school here. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love how it's like, my first master's is in this, and then how about you, Fiona?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Fiona, and I'm also from Computer Science Aligned program. And in my undergrad, I studied accounting. And after graduation, I joined Ernst & Young, which is a Big Four accounting firm, as a senior auditor. And however, the reason that I decided to change my career is that during my work, I realized that the technology can hugely optimize the traditional audit work. So I self-studied Python and realized that this is what I want, and I would like to make bigger impact with technology. And this is the reason why I choose Computer Science Aligned program in Northeastern, since this is the perfect program for non-tech students. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, hello everybody, a very good evening, and thank you for coming out today. My name is Purvish Thakkar, and currently I'm enrolled in the project management program at the College of Professional Studies here at Northeastern in Silicon Valley. Originally, I'm from Vadodara, India, and now I've been in Silicon Valley just trying to keep up with the tech hustle, while also still getting used to ordering avocado toast without flinching, if you know what I mean. And prior to my grad school, I was actually an architectural student. I studied design in India. So I was the guy designing buildings and making sure that they don't fall down. But then later I realized that I was more keen towards managing projects than just designing blueprints. And that's how I decided to pivot to project management. And I traded floor plans for Gantt charts. As far as it comes to how did I end up choosing Northeastern in Silicon Valley, I guess as everybody mentioned, you are in the center of the innovation hub. Living in Silicon Valley in San Jose is like living in the biggest innovation bubble. Where else do you meet people in coffee shops where they are pitching their next innovation idea, their startup idea, or they are talking about developing an app for, I don't know, whatever reason they think it's going to change the world. So yeah, Northeastern was the perfect fit because it allowed for hands-on learning experience. I am somebody who doesn't really like to sit inside classrooms and just memorize concepts. I'm somebody who is more about getting that hands-on experience, working on real-life challenges, and that's how kind of Northeastern ticked all the correct boxes for me.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And what I love here is to think about the diversity of backgrounds, so both in professional experience, national origin, culture, and that creates such a rich environment on our campus. Like, I'm always amazed. I keep finding out, oh, you did what before? You did what? You kept buildings from falling? Tell me more. This is so interesting. And thinking about how those various experiences then apply to computer science, to AI, to project management. What we're hearing from employers more and more is that, and we know this at Northeastern, is the future is multidisciplinary. Can you see a problem from multiple perspectives? Can you also listen to multiple perspectives and have that curiosity to be able to come up with new solutions? So I love how all of your backgrounds really exemplify that. So let's talk about co-op. Let's talk about how you went about finding a co-op. And so what's interesting is, at Northeastern we call it co-op. A lot of employers in Silicon Valley would say, what, you mean an internship? Well, sometimes it looks like an internship, like sometimes it looks like a specific path line of a co-op. So I'd love to hear about your co-op journey. What was the company that you ended up doing a co-op in? What was the structure of your role? And what was it like? So I'm not going to mix it up and start with Fiona.
Oh, okay. So this summer, I completed my co-op at Amazon Web Services on Redshift concurrency team. And my role is the software engineer intern, where I wrote infra code to automate a process and to save multiple hours and make engineers' life easier. Yeah, and the structure of my co-op is to, like, for the first several weeks, I did the design of my project, and then for the following weeks, I implemented with my code.
Wonderful. And so you were in person most of the time?
Yeah, I did that in person in Seattle.
Oh, so she just went on co-op in another city. Why not? We have a campus there too, actually, right across from Amazon. So you also have Northeastern friends there.
Exactly.
Fantastic. How about you, Purvish?
I started my co-op with this amazing nonprofit based out in Boston, and they are called MadeINcubator. Essentially, they help build the creative economy in Boston, and they support the creative community of Boston by providing hands-on learning and education support by providing them access to resources. What I really liked about my co-op was the opportunity to work with a diverse set of people. Everybody brought a very unique skill set to the team, and there was a real spirit of collaboration. And my co-op was a bunch of everything. Let's say I was working remote for a big part of the co-op, but I also spent a few days in Boston as a part of my onboarding, and then a lot of Zoom meetings. I think I probably earned the Zoom fatigue badge while I was on that 6-month co-op with MadeINcubator. But it was a great learning opportunity, and it was very exciting for me to know that working on small campaigns and small initiatives can drive such bigger impacts, especially when you are working in the nonprofit space. And as far as it's about finding that co-op, it was a rather unconventional way for me. I started my graduate school in January of 23. And it was the same time around when I got an email from the Associate Director of Talent Engagement in Boston, and they highlighted MadeINcubator's ongoing project back in 23. It was called Living Art Boston 2023. I was very excited about the opportunity, the work that the company was doing. I reached out to the CEO directly. For over a year, I nurtured that relationship. I kept on following up with the collaboration proposals between Northeastern and MadeINcubator. Not a lot of those proposals actually came to fruition, but it kind of helped the employer know that I was genuinely interested and the kind of value that I could bring. Northeastern also had an ongoing partnership with this company. So we have a platform called NU Works where we have a lot of these employers registered where students can connect with these employers. So I attended one of the Employer Connect sessions. Obviously, I had an edge over the rest of the applicants because I was already talking with the CEO for over a year. As soon as I became eligible for an internship, which is typically in project management after 3 quarters or after you complete your first year, I reached out to the CEO and checked if they had an availability, and then they offered me the position for a strategic partnerships and PR management coordinator for their company.
Thank you for sharing that. So I love the variety, like nonprofit, community-based organization focused on the arts and fashion and design, and then one of the, probably the largest technology company that you can find. And how about you, Jason?
So I did my co-op intern at a media company called the SiriusXM, and it has like 2 products, like one's called SiriusXM podcast and Pandora, like a customized phone app, like to listen to music. And the format of my co-op was hybrid, even though I was hired as a remote, but it happened to be they have a office in Oakland, so I asked my manager if I can go on site to meet my teammate, and they said like, yes, you can. So I just turned my remote like co-op to a hybrid one. And during my co-op, I was hired as a security intern, and I was wearing 2 hats here. Doing application security and also enterprise security. So application security that supports thousands of developers, and I was building internal toolings to make sure the developers are doing secure process, and also like Fiona did like during her co-op, like reduce like amount of time they will spend on certain process. And for enterprise security, I was tested to develop a automation tool, kind of to automate the process to collect the data, because for a large enterprise company, there are petabytes data going through the traffic going through the company every day, and I was able to collect the data and turn into dashboards and to present to higher end management team to show them like where are some things we need to look into that. So that's what I did during my intern like co-op there.
Sounds like it was a high impact, although presenting to the management about problems, sometimes it's an interesting experience as well. I'd love to hear from each of you, like what was a big lesson learned or a big aha, what you told yourself, wow, like if I hadn't been on co-op, I wouldn't have been able to connect what I'm learning to this insight. That's really important. I mean, it doesn't have to be super high level. I was telling you the story when we were preparing that if I had been on a co-op while I was a PhD student, it would have been better. But by the time I graduated from my PhD, I sounded like a PhD student in how I was writing. And the first most actionable feedback I got in my job at a high growth small nonprofit is, Caroline, nobody reads your emails. Because I was writing them like a research paper. Like, well, in this condition, it would be this, and research shows it could be this instead. And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, that would have been good to know even before I started. So what's an aha for you that you got from the co-op? What comes up?
I can start. So I would say two things. And the first thing would be transferring theoretical knowledge to like a practical skills. And that's the first thing, because in school, it was pretty purely like a theoretical, maybe some hands-on experiences, but working for an industrial, like enterprise level company, they scale up all the problems. So yeah. I'm not dealing with like my side projects, not dealing with like a one person or like a team based, but like supporting, like developing a project, supporting thousands of people or 10,000 people. And speaking of the clients, there will be million clients out there. So I need to figure out a way how to kind of transfer my theoretical knowledge into practical skills and how to apply them.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And that question is what you're coming up with as a solution, is it scalable?
Right.
Is it fixing the one, or can we extrapolate it? That's a really good one.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest lesson that I learned from my co-op is that sometimes you might need a bit of the change of your mindset, especially for the students who would like to change their career. So for example, I studied accounting and I was the auditor before. So at that time, I have to follow the accounting standards and do everything following the instructions. However, during my co-op and at the very beginning time, I asked my mentor, so is there any instructions that I could solve this problem? However, my mentor answered that there is no instructions for engineers. Engineers just forge their path. So this is a very significant change of mindset. So I wish I could know earlier that we have to develop our own way to solve a problem. We have to think all the time, and this is also the most interesting part to be an engineer.
That's a really good insight. You know, we hear too from often students who are out in a startup, right? And things are changing all the time, and well, we thought our product was going to be this, but then it's that, and so also, or it's very ambiguous because it's just beginning. Yeah. So that ability to forge the path is really important. Yes. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Perfect.
For me, there were two big takeaways from my time at MadeINcubator. One of the first one is that now I'm a firm believer of agile methodologies. Nonprofits sometimes can be very unpredictable, and agile is all about figuring it out on the fly. So let's just say I became very good at pivoting without breaking a sweat. And the next big thing was the importance of not overlooking opportunities in nonprofits and startups. A lot of times while applying for jobs, for co-ops, or for any other professional opportunity, people, including myself, would tend to focus on bigger corporations, but we kind of overlook the opportunities that are present in startups or in nonprofit space. I feel nonprofits and startups, they allow you to take on real responsibilities and also allow you to work on some real challenges, help you kind of build your profile, get that work experience before you're actually industry ready to set your foot into one of those bigger corporate positions or corporate jobs. Also, it was eye-opening for me that in this nonprofit space, even though we were working on some smaller campaigns, even though we were working on small-scale events, the impact that it had on the community was very big. So not to underestimate the power of startups and the nonprofit ecosystem. Those were two of my biggest takeaways.
And that's something we talk about a lot, is like there are very strong brands in our ecosystem and they provide incredible opportunities. And as we speak, there's a lot of startups being born in this ecosystem as well. And so you might just find a great opportunity from an organization that was previously unknown, right? Before Google was Google, it was 2 students in a lab at Stanford, and they convinced others to join them to experiment. So that's kind of part of the journey as well. So thank you for talking about that breadth, the value of the breadth of experience. I want to talk about what resources, when you were searching for co-op, you attained. So we know from our data that about 80% of the students go on co-op, and of those who do, they tend to go for more than one. So it's kind of something too that you can build in your program, more than one. But also what other experiential learning opportunities you took advantage of while here.
Okay, for me, the Northeastern resources are so helpful for me. So first of all, I used a career peer advisor resource, so where I can like mock interviews and let them like help me tailor my resumes. And this helped me a lot, especially just before the interview. And the second one is the GLS support that we can book one-on-one session with some professors to improve our English speaking skills. So I remember that before, when I prepared for my Amazon interview, I just booked that session every day to improve my English speaking. And the third one is that we have a lot of amazing Northeastern alumni. So when I was preparing my Amazon interview, I just had coffee chat with several alumni, and I asked them, what do you think that I need to improve, or like I asked them several tips to prepare for the interview. Yeah, and that's for me.
That's wonderful. And I think the ability, and I hope I can speak for the whole team here, is that we also hold ourselves accountable to continuous learning in what do students need to know now, what are the skills in demand, but also what are the things we can provide. And just today, there was a whole conversation about somebody who has a startup on AI kind of enabled figuring out if your resume has the words of this or that, and like having more scalable searches and things like that. So our team is also always asking, okay, what else do we need to be able to advise students? How do we keep up with Silicon Valley, a place like this? We can't say, oh, this is how you do a resume, and this has always been this way, because now, the first person to look at it, not a human, it's a computer, right? So we always have to continuously update the resources we provide. So how about you, Jason?
There are so many resources I Fiona mentioned. Like I took advantage of the not only CPA, I also work at CPA for 1 semester. Not only like getting help from the CPAs, but like giving back to the CPAs, because giving me a grasp of how to handle interviews from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And the career advising team is great, and the experiential learning team is great, and there are student interest groups, and which are great resources students can get involved into based on their interests. It's spanning from not only computer science, but also all the way like product management or even cybersecurity. I'm holding one cybersecurity club, so that's of that.
Plug.
Yeah, so that's a great resources. Like students can participate and attend events and get exposure to the variety of the topics and to learn.
The student interest groups are a great resource too. Sometimes the experiential learning team will also bring industry-aligned projects that it could be a specific project that a SIG wants to take on to get that kind of concrete applied experience. And also there's some interest groups for all sorts of interests, right? There's a new dance group called Husky Moves, and there's a golf group, and there's a hiking group, and art. And what I love about that too is kind of curating the student energy for the whole person, and really having students come up with what do we see as a need, where do we have energy, what do we want to do, and both from kind of academics, applied experiential learning, and life, the rest of life that we need to make sure we all embrace as well so we can keep going. So that's very positive. Thank you so much. I would love to just talk a little bit more about how we think about the future. And I wanted to say too that, we know there's a lot of interesting shifts in the industry and in Silicon Valley with the advent of AI and how everything is going. And so we're also very busy listening to employers and learning about what are the skills that are coming up, what are the skills of tomorrow, what are you concerned about with this new technology adoption missing of how do you need to think about reskilling, upskilling, what do our students need to know so that we can keep the programming fresh and bring people what they really need to know right now. So I would love to make sure we have enough time for questions because I'm sure you all have a lot to ask about.
Anyone have any questions for our students or for Carolyn?
First question I wanted to ask, generally computer science is a 4-year based course and the Align is generally a 2-year course here, master's. And from a person coming from a non-computer science background, how challenging or how much we can cover in 2 years to make them ready for what the employers asking for.
Yes. Do you want to talk about your Align experience, and then I can add and also?
Oh, yes. So actually, Align program, especially computer science Align program, is a 2.5-year program. And if you do co-op, you can maximum is 2 3 years. So I guess it is like for the normal 4-year undergrad study, is for the first year it's a general study, right? So I guess it's similar to 3 years is enough for you to learn the technical skills. Yeah, especially if you are going to participate in the co-op, you can learn more, much more, through the hands-on experience.
And I would add that the Align program is very successful, and in fact, it was created at Northeastern by the Corey College of Computer Science. And it really was in response to talking to industry and employers, said we need more people who have those technical skills. And also what we're seeing is the value of having the background in accounting or another discipline and applying it, adding computer science on that. And we have here, and you can talk to him afterwards, one of the faculty members in the Align program, Professor Mark Miller, and he's a brilliant educator and knows a lot about the Align program. And so he'd be happy to really tell you specifically how the curriculum is tailored and evolved so that you can ramp up on those technical skills.
That's all. I was going to also volunteer, Mark. So. Anything else? Any questions? Yeah.
Hello. Hey. So I'm My question is about how do we handle the school's coursework versus the co-op or internship in summer? Like, what's the support we can get from the school? Say that if I have this, I need to be on this co-op on-site for spring semesters, but I also have like 2 courses enrolled already. So how do we handle this? And on top of that, like, because for international students, we need to have certain work authorization or a CPT to be on the co-op. So I'm wondering what kind of support we can get from Northeastern about all this.
Yes. And this is where our brilliant academic advisors, as well as the support from GLS in really working with not only giving you the specific advice on the credits versus the co-op opportunity, but also the incredible counsel and support to figure out obtaining the CPT. Is there anything that any of you would want to add? Clearly.
Yeah, I could jump in.
Yeah.
So I do work with Office of Global Services, which is our international office on campus here. So we definitely do a lot of monitoring to make sure everything is going well on your progress toward getting CPT and making sure that things are going well in terms of how you maintain your F1 status, right? It's really about kind of that balance of having on-ground presence. If you want online classes, that's an option we can talk about as well too. When you can actually go out on CPT is, as you mentioned, tied to timing and when that can be done and how many can actually do after that. So it's really things that we at our office really monitor and make sure that you have a place to talk to us about. So if you have any concerns, questions, thoughts you're thinking about want to work here, how does this work? I'm thinking about summer as an option versus maybe fall, and how does that play out to my graduation timeline? Many factors that we can kind of talk about. But yeah, happy to talk to you when you want to go into more depth about that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And then the academic advisors from each college also make sure on the credit side and the course timeline and evolution that it all works out for your graduation plans.
And how did you balance co-op and school?
Do you want to say that?
Yeah, I think the line programs, while I'm in the computer science line, so it's well designed. So there will be a bridge course like for the first semester and the second semester, and just getting the students well prepared for applying for the co-op. So you will have like immersive study on those subject, a computer science subject, and we're ready to enter the workforce, and they will allow you to use. We have a great resource called NU Works, and you can apply like internal like co-ops and jobs like through that website, and yeah. So basically. At the time, apply for jobs like the student should be ready, and the query has prepared the student to be ready for that.
Yeah, and if you find a co-op, for example, in the spring or fall semester, you don't have to take courses. Yeah.
So it kind of also depends on the nature of your co-op / internship. Is it like a full-time co-op? Is it a part-time co-op? For me specifically, for example, I had a part-time co-op where I was taking part credits and I was working 20 hours a week for my co-op, towards my co-op. So it was all about striking that right balance, kind of prioritizing your task as per your commitments to your job and also your commitment towards your academics. At the same time, there's ample of resources, as were discussed earlier, like your academic advisors. They're always ready to help you out if you're struggling with any specific learning that you need to be doing in your course. There is career advisors who kind of help you navigate through the professional journey that you might not always be very familiar with if you're coming in as a fresher. There's also OGS, who's always on their toes, and all of these departments, they kind of work together to ensure that you have a positive learning and a co-op experience. For example, when you're applying for co-ops, not necessarily that you're going to hear back from your employers within a certain timeline. Sometimes it can be very uncertain. And it kind of happened in my own case as well. I got my co-op at the very last minute, but Career Services, OGS, Jasgad is here, he knows about this already. They were all on their toes making sure that I qualified for my CPT. I had all of my paperwork done in time, even if it meant that, accelerating and kind of prioritizing my request over some of their other work. And basically all of all the staff and faculty and the resources at Northeastern, they kind of come together to to make sure that you get onto that opportunity and that you don't miss that opportunity. And while you have tapped into that opportunity, you're also able to perform to your fullest potential. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I have a question concerning your faculty, and are they full-time? Are they working in Silicon Valley companies, or are they also faculty from Boston?
Thank you for asking that. So we have a great mix of faculty. We have some faculty that are full-time and are here teaching several courses, and then we have, and some are also involved in creating research opportunities and working with the students on that. And then we have faculty who are Google product leader by day and faculty member by night. And we find that this mix is very powerful, in fact, because I think the full-time faculty bring a certain amount of consistency and dedication to a certain curriculum in the classroom and on-campus presence, and then the part-time faculty who are embedded in industry provide that lens of what's going on right now in industry and how do you think about applying these concepts right now.
Hi, I'm curious to know if there are any opportunities for research assistantships, mainly like, and particularly if anyone here is doing something like this and has been able to publish during the course.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a great faculty member, Zhang Liu, who has a research capstone initiative, as well as our Corey director, Ilmi Yoon. And then the faculty members really work with students on those there's poster presentations or some research capstone projects, and we have seen students publish. Alan Eng, who's over there in the back, knows all about all the research projects that are currently being worked on. So if you want to learn more about the kind of research projects that are happening right now, that can give you a good sample of it.
Yeah, and I'm taking the research capstone course this semester, and I have been collaborating with Professor Yomi to build Gen AI and LLM research. So this is so exciting for me since I am doing a very cutting edge project. Yeah.
And they also do a research showcase. So we have, we're gonna have every student present on their research project and findings, and we're gonna invite not only our campus members, but also community members from industry and partners to attend.
There's another program called like apprenticeship, like a research apprenticeship program I'm currently involved into. So that one is to give you an opportunity to collaborate with for example, like a Silicon Valley campus, like professor, faculty, or remotely collaborating with the professors all the way from like Boston and on a subject of the research, so yeah.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because I'm not particularly involved in research personally, but I have a lot of peers who are into research, and I have seen cases where they're collaborating with professors remotely. And because Northeastern has such an expansive presence all across North America, they have faculty and professors in Boston, in Seattle, in Miami, in Texas, who are taking on some really interesting research projects. And all of the student community, whether it be on their respective campuses or onto their global network campuses, everybody has an equitable opportunity, a chance to participate onto those researches. So it's not only the opportunities, they are not just localized, but they're rather ubiquitous across the Northeastern network.
Yeah, sometimes the answer will be like, oh, I don't know if we have that right now on this campus, but let me ask what's going on. And then you see like the thread starts, and then you can find all the possibilities even outside of our walls. So that's a great point.
Anyone else? Okay. Well then, I want to thank our panel for the absolutely fantastic